Math uses different signs to show multiplication. So 3 with a dot means multiply. This means multiply. The star means multiply. And then parentheses, when they're right close together, no space, can mean multiply. The product, which means multiply, of two numbers with the same sign is positive, or plus. The product, which means you multiply two numbers with different signs, is a negative. So two negatives make a positive. The product of 0 and any number is 0. So for example, 0 times 6 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. Anytime you multiply 0 and a number, you get 0. So in this chart, it sums it up. A negative times a negative is a positive. Two negatives, when you multiply, you get a positive. A negative times a positive is a negative. Same thing with a positive times a negative. That's a negative. Positive times a negative is a negative. A positive times a positive is a positive. And now you can have groups of 3. If you have 3 numbers, think about grouping them up. Do order of operations. So a negative times a negative is a positive, but then you still have times a negative. So you get a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. Carry down the positive, and you're going to get a positive. Okay, now let's practice this and try these. So 4 times 5 is a positive times a positive. So the answer is going to be a positive number. They have the same sign, so it's going to be positive. Negative 2 times negative 7, they're both negative. They have the same sign, so it's going to be positive. The next table has different signs. Positive 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. Because one is a positive, one's a negative. If they have different signs, it's going to be a negative. Negative 8 times 4 is a negative 32. And we just learned that when you multiply anything by 0, you get 0. So now the next ones aren't written in order. We're going to use order of operations and remember our sign rules. So 2 negative 5 is 2 times negative 5. There's no space. One of them is a positive. The other one is a negative. They are different signs. So the answer is negative 10. Letter B. A negative times a negative is a positive. And we're multiplying, so it's a positive 56. Letter C. A negative times a positive is a negative. So it's negative 4. They're different signs. Letter D, we're going to use order of operations. So from left to right, a negative 4 times 8. They have different signs. So it's negative 32. Copy down the negative 2. A negative times a negative is a positive 64. Next, do order of operations. A positive times a negative, they have different signs. So it's negative 18 times a negative 5. So now I have to do 18 times 5. 5 times 8 is 40, carry the 4. 1 times 5 is 5 plus 4 is 90. So it needs to be a positive 90 because they're different signs. And the last one, 3 times negative 9 is negative 27. Because they have different signs. Bring down the 0. Anything times 0 is just 0. When you divide numbers and multiply, they're the same rules. So the quotient, when you divide two numbers with the same sign, it's positive. The quotient, so when you divide two numbers with different signs, it's negative. And the quotient of any number in 0 is undefined. You cannot divide anything by 0. So 5 divided by 0 is undefined. I'll write it out. Undefined. But 0 divided by 5 equals 0. So if there's a 0 on the first or on the top, it's 0. If it's 0 under, it's undefined. So let's practice these. One is a negative, the other one's a positive, so there needs to be a -4. A negative and a negative, the two signs are the same, so the answer is going to be positive. 48 divided by 6 is 8. These two have the same sign, so 56 divided by 4 is 14. 14. It's 14 times 4, 56. 4 times 4 is 6. Add the 1. Yes, it's 56, so it is right. And the last example, find the average. So to find the average is to add up all of the numbers and then divide by how many there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 numbers. So I'm going to add 4 plus -3 plus -5 plus 2 plus -8 all over 5. So order of operations, 4 plus -3 is 1. 1 plus -5 is -4. -4 plus 2 is -2. -2 plus -8 is -10. So the answer is -10 divided by 5. This one is a negative, this one is a positive. They're different signs, so the answer is -2. So the average, add up all the numbers that there are and divide by the number of numbers, is -2. Okay, practice these. The first one is multiply because there's no space with the parentheses. So 5 times -2 is -10. These two have different signs. -10 divided by 2 is -5. These two have the same sign, so it's going to be a positive. 16 divided by 2 is 8. I'm just going to add a few more. If you have 0 divided by 8, remember 0 is on the top, it's 0. But if you had 8 divided by 0, 0 is underneath, so it's going to be undefined. Undefined. Here's another example. 9 divided by 0. Well, if you wrote this, it would be 9 divided by 0, and that's also going to be undefined. So it can look like this, or it can look like this. When it's second, the 0 second, it's still undefined.